all turned up the radio to hear Brother Jimmy Lakey, from coast to coast and shore to shore. Now raise your voice. Oh, let us all Jimmy Lakey, get out of bed. Jimmy Lakey, raise your voice. Jimmy Lakey, Lakey, hey, can't live without it with Jimmy Lakey. Jimmy Lakey.
Well, praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. I'm here. Glory, I am here. Everybody happy? I hope you am. I hope he is. I hope you be. I hope you're happy that I'm here, Delilah. Are you happy that I'm here? It's a Monday. You're not happy. You're here, but that's okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my birthday week. I hope you're planning to send gifts and to celebrate with me. It's my birthday week. So you say it's your birthday. There's a song here. That's coming up Thursday. We'll be taking Thursday off. Well, not because of my birthday. We don't celebrate my birthday. But producer Chad this morning is sitting literally beachside in a resort area. He's right on the beach, and we did our pre-show meeting, and I could barely hear him because the waves were crashing in the background. And he said there's free margaritas downstairs, but I'm just going to pop a cerveza in the morning. So, ladies and gentlemen, if some of the words are misspelled across your screen this morning, it's because producer Chad is sitting beachside, and he's committed to day drinking. Listen, you can't drink all day if you don't start early. That's the rule out there. So, anyway, producer Chad's on a little holiday, so we'll take some time off. Yeah, but the birthday's Thursday. He's coming home Friday. Anyway, but he's working on the vacation. Isn't that exciting? He's very committed to this high-paying job that we both have called Lakey Unleashed. Very committed to this high-paying gig that we have. All right, everybody's good out there? Happy to be there. Happy to be here. I'm happy to be everywhere. Good to have you. Well, let's dive into some news and headlines, and we shall discover what's happening in the world around us. You might have heard the news. It looks like the Senate is on the brink of passing a deal to reopen the government. Did you hear that? The U.S. Senate is getting together. They've had some defectors that have decided, hey, this has gone on way too long, and we should reopen the government. And evidently, Chuck Schumer, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, they're all very angry at these Democrats. I want you to kind of go back to where we were at a week ago. 1 week ago, what a difference a week makes. One week ago, they were taking a victory lap and telling us that what happened in blue states was a sign that every state in America was turning into a blue state. And I told you, don't be putting, it's not that you can't learn lessons from an election, but when New York has a big election and they go Democrat, and when Virginia has a big election and they go Democrat, don't be freaking out and say, oh my God, we got to change the whole party nationwide. No, those were blue states, and a blue state's going to do what a blue state's going to do, and that's what the blue state did, right? Blue states everywhere, blue state. Well, last week they were telling us how victorious and how wonderful the Democrat Party was. And now we wake up to end fighting, and it's the Democrat civil war because Dems are splitting away from their leadership. Chucky Schumer, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, the crazy wing of the Democrat Party. And some of them said, you know what, it's time for this to come to an end. Now, there's some concessions, if you will, some funding of the government through January. I wouldn't call that a concession. They originally was funded through November, but now they're like, okay, we got to have a little bit more time here since the Democrats kept us closed for over 40 days to work this out. And also there was remember this thing of we've got to have those Obamacare supplements put back in there. Well, the Republicans said, okay, we'll put it in there, but we'll just say you're going to vote on it sometime in December. You guys can have a little vote, and you can vote on these Obamacare supplements, and we'll have a straight vote on that. But we'll do that in December. We're not going to use that as a leverage to reopen the government. So Democrats, in a sense, if you kind of look at it, really lost. They got through the midterm election, and I think what happened is that, yes, I think there's chaos, and I think some of them are very frustrated with Chuck Schumer. I think after the election, they said, listen, Chuck, we're done with this. We won the election. We're doing a victory lap, but we got to get the government reopened. And I think I don't think there'll be much retribution, but I think there's going to be a lot of verbal tongue lashing at these Democrats that parted ways. I pulled up, or I didn't do it. Somebody else did it, but I'll claim credit for it because we're going to play it here on the show. I want to play a video for you that I haven't loaded, but I'm going to pull it up right here live on the screen. And this is a video of an old speech by Barack Hussein Obama. And this is what Barack Obama was saying about the Republicans during a government shutdown during his term of office. And he was saying how irresponsible it would be to use a government shutdown to try to get a policy matter through, because there's other ways to do that. You got to go through the bills, the legislation, and the whole process on Capitol Hill. So this was Obama. And I wonder if Chuck Schumer and these whack job Democrats have ever gone back and watched this speech. So let's watch it.
Down the government just because you don't like a law that was passed and found constitutional. No Congress before this one has ever in history been irresponsible enough to threaten default, to threaten an economic shutdown, to suggest America not pay its bills, just to try to blackmail a president into giving them some concessions. We're not going to submit to this kind of total irresponsibility. Congress needs to pay our bills on time. Congress needs to pass a budget on time. Congress needs to put an end to governing from crisis to crisis. If Republicans do not like the law, they can go through the regular channels and processes to try to change it. That's why we have elections. You do not threaten the full faith and credit of the United States of America.
That was Barack Obama. And now 41 days later, 40-something plus days later, the Democrats have decided to reopen the government after violating every principle that their Lord and Savior, Barry Hussein Obama, had laid out of things that you do not do. It shows you what it does what show you. It does show you that Democrats have no core values. Barack Obama talks a good game, pretends like that's a passionate core value, but the real core value for Democrats anymore is just they have Trump derangement syndrome. The Trump derangement syndrome, the TDS, has actually gone overboard. And even if they did have some scruples, and even if they did believe what Barry Hussein Obama warned them about and warned Republicans about many years ago, it goes out the window because of the Trump derangement syndrome. So here's your question that I ask of you this morning. You hear that the government's going to reopen. You hear that some the Democrat senators are going to break from Schumer and the party. How many of you are surprised? Your thoughts on this whole thing? Do you think that it's really a behind-the-scenes fight like they say it is? I think there is, but I think all along there's been some senators that say, listen, that we got to reopen this thing. And I think the Democrats strong-armed them behind the scenes and said, come on, we got to keep the momentum up with this whack job base that we have. We're fighting, and we got to get through the midterm election, this off-year election. And I think those senators that had been thinking reasonably finally said, okay, we let you get through that election. We let you keep the seats in Virginia and all that stuff. We wanted to pretend we were fighting, wanted to pretend we were caring, but we're breaking from this. I think they were warning all along, and I think they just got begged to wait until after last week's election, and that's what they did. They waited until after the election, and we shall see how it all pans out. Now, it's not open this morning. The Senate just took the first step to end the government shutdown on Sunday by a verbal confirmation that a group of moderate Democrats, I looked at the list and I'm like, some of them aren't that moderate, but I guess compared to the whack jobs that are running that party now, moderate is a pretty easy definition for them. They're going to proceed without a guaranteed extension of the health care subsidies. That angers many of their caucus who say Americans want them to continue to fight. So in a test vote, that is the first vote in a series of required procedural maneuvers, the Senate voted 60-40 to move towards passing a compromise piece of legislation, getting it just at the threshold where it needs to move forward. Fund the government, the Affordable Care Act, and hold a later vote on the extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits that will expire on January the 1st. The final passage, though, could still be several days away if Democrats object and they decide to delay the process. So this is not going to happen today. They got to get it through the U.S. Senate. The agreement does not guarantee the Affordable Care Act subsidies will be extended. Democrats have demanded this for almost 6 weeks. Chuck Schumer of New York voted against moving ahead with this package, along with all but 8 of his other Democrat colleagues. So I'm going to read the names of these 8 colleagues of of Chuck Schumer that are going to vote to reopen the government. And if you don't hear your U.S. senator on there, then you probably need to know that they're crazy. My senators are not on there. John Hickenlooper and Michael Bennet, they're not on this list of what they'd call moderate or reasonable Democrats. John Hickenlooper and Michael Bennet want to keep the government closed. They want to keep the air traffic controllers from getting paid. They want everybody in the government to not get paid, except Michael Bennet and John Hickenlooper have been continuing to draw their paycheck. Isn't that interesting? Very interesting. They want you to feel the pain because, as Democrats have said, that's the only leverage they have. But Hickenlooper and Bennett are still getting their paycheck because it's what's good for thee is not good for me. What's good for you is not good for them. And they're hypocrites, and they may fake trying to be moderate Democrats, but they're frauds and they're shysters is what they are. And they've continued to get a paycheck the entire time. Senate Majority Leader, I'll go through the names here in a second. John Thune, Republican of South Dakota, he's the Senate Majority Leader, has endorsed the deal, called for an immediate vote. So once they get a final vote, they got to go through some procedural stuff in the U.S. Senate. Then you're waiting on the House to be called back into session. The House has been dispatched, and they've been out of session for all the entire time. And so they've got to all book a flight, go back into town. They've got to ratify because this is a slightly different CR than what they passed the first time. And they have to get back into town. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this all pans out. But I would guess if they got the word last night to start booking your flights, maybe Tuesday, Wednesday, at the latest Thursday, the House would get this vote as long as Democrats do not hold it up anymore, and the government shall be open. Now, can the government start issuing checks before the official ink is dry on the bill? I'm not sure how that works, but the House is going to have to all fly back into session and get up there. A group of 3 former governors, New Hampshire Senator Jean Shaheen, New Hampshire Senator Maggie Hassan, and Independent Senator Angus King of Maine, all broke the 6-week stalemate. Joining those 3 former governors including, in addition to Shaheen, King, and Hassan, Democrat Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia, home to tens of thousands of federal workers, also voted in favor of moving forward on the agreement. Illinois Senator Dick Durbin, he jumped in there. He's the number 2 Democrat. And Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman and Nevada Senators Catherine Cortez Masto and Jackie Rosen also have decided to vote yes and cross the leadership of their party and vote yes on this thing. So it's going to be interesting, but I don't think your direct deposit is going to hit immediately. I think it's going to take a little bit of time, a couple of days, because the House is going to have to fly back in and pass this new version of the continuing resolution. But I go back and point out how we were told that the Democrats had really found their niche, and their socialism and their affordability pleas had really worked, and it was just a wonderful thing. And really, all that, it's not. Now they're talking about where they want the head of Chuck Schumer politically on a platter, people calling him for his resignation for not being able to keep these other Democrats in line. Even his number 2, Dick Durbin, has decided to cross paths, cross the other side, and vote against what Chuck Schumer wants. So how much of it is showboating? I think there's quite a bit of it, but I do think there's some real anger and a civil war in there, because some of these senators are going, why are we letting the crazies take over our party that don't play in Peoria? And that's what you had happen last week, is you had the crazies winning in Virginia and the crazies winning in New York, and those are blue states. And we all were told we should be shocked that blue state or Democrats won in a blue state, which I told you don't have to be shocked about that at all. So there is some infighting, but I think these senators probably at least got talked in. They're not men and women of principle, as you would think, because they could have voted this way. They could have struck this deal a long time ago, but I think they were told no dealing, no dealing. They said, we got to reopen. They said, please, we're desperate. We're horrible people. We have horrible candidates. We have bad messaging. So please don't, we got to have the whack job base out there thinking that we're going to fight. And so please don't cave right now. And these people that are now trying to come across as moderates, I think, could have done this deal 4, 5, 6 weeks ago. They could have done it before the government shut down. They could have done it 6 days ago, but they did not, not because they're great people of principle, but because behind the scenes they got snookered and talked into don't reopen the government. You got to get us through that election, and they got through the election, and now all of a sudden they're like, oh, we're so moderate. Look at us. We finally come to reason. You could have come to reason weeks ago on this whole thing and signed this continuing resolution weeks ago, but they got talked into not doing what they did because they're not the people of principle they want to portray themselves to be. All right, I got a question of the day for you. Holiday season is coming. A lot of people have house guests during holiday season. People come and stay in your guest room and maybe have a couple of guest rooms. Maybe have people shacked up on couches and floors. And I remember going to my grandparents as a kid. The adults all got bedrooms. The kids, we slept on the floor out in the living room, and it was kind of a big camp out for my cousins and I. And my sister and the girl cousins would go to my aunt's house. The boy cousins, if they were younger, went to the other cousin's house. They were young, about the same age. And those of us who were about the same age growing up, we would sleep on Grandma and Grandpa's floor. And, we stayed 2 or 3 nights in a row or something at Christmas or Thanksgiving whenever we went to the grandparents' house. And I think it depends on the setup and whether or not you like the people coming. But I want to ask you a question. How long is it before someone is considered to be overstaying their welcome? When do people overstay their welcome at your home? If they have house guests, according to a new survey, if you're planning to visit friends and family this holiday season, chances are you'll literally hear something like, stay as long as you like, literally, but they don't mean it. They do not mean it. According to a new survey, most people would be happy to host guests for 6 days maximum. Any longer than that, and you're beginning to overstay your welcome. Parents say the adult kids get longer than that, though. According to a new survey of 2,000 Americans, most people would be happy to host guests for 6 days. Any longer than that, and you're beginning to overstay your welcome. 33% of people admit that they'll begin dropping hints that it's time to go. 22% claim that they'll outright tell a guest they've stayed long enough. Have you ever done that? Have you ever? I've never. I don't have that many house guests. I just don't have that many people that would come and stay the night. So that's, I guess, good. Not a huge family on my side. 33% of people say they drop hints. 22% say they will tell their guests, "You've stayed long enough. It's time for you to go." Not all guests get the same timetable. Parents are cool with their adult children staying for about 10 days. And let's be honest, most moms are cool with much, much more than that. They probably thrilled with anything less than moving in with us indefinitely. In-laws and other family members in the survey should get cut off at 5 days. And for what it's worth, most people in the survey say they do love hosting, and 46% want to be the home where everyone gathers for festivities. The biggest problem isn't hosting being too much work or guests getting annoying. It's just space. 40% of people say they don't have a guest room, so their overnight visitors are sleeping on the couch. 40% of Americans don't have a guest room, and so their guests are sleeping on the couch. So let me ask you the question, how long is too long, and when do you believe your guests have overstayed? And I know there's a lot of caveats on there, and there's a lot of things that kind of are caveats. It could be your son, your daughter, or their grandkids there. And even generationally, for millennials and Gen X, there's probably also the impact on the personal schedule. Some people can move easily around to cater for guests for a few days, but if you're a working person, if you're a younger person hosting, you're putting stuff off and you got to get back to business. Gen Zers and Boomers are more likely to have a flexible schedule, so that they're not working, they're retired or just lazy, and so they have a flexible schedule. So give me your thoughts. How long do you know it is when a guest has overstayed their welcome? How many days before you think on average the guest has overstayed their welcome? Rich says 5 minutes, or depends on how they act and how much they help. Usually a few days and you're out of here. My son, he obviously still lives here. This is his home, but he's away at college. And when he comes home for Thanksgiving or Christmas, it's not that I don't love having him here, and he can stay as long as he wants. It's his house, and he's just in a college dorm. But the problem becomes he took his car off to college, and I only have one car, and it's my car. And so when he's here, the frustration sets in. It's not that I want him to leave. It's just we have to navigate automobiles. So he usually takes my car, and I rack up bills on Uber or Lyft getting around town. So that's a little frustrating, but it's not enough for me to say, you get back to college. But I'm sure by the end of that, he's ready to get back to college because all of his college friends are at college. So I get that. But again, how long is it before you think somebody has overstayed their welcome? And have you ever directly told someone, hey, you know what? Enjoyed having you. I know you're going to enjoy that trip home tomorrow, right? You ever done that? I had some dear friends that may be watching right now that the In Colorado, we know it as the Marshall Fire. And I had never had house guests like this. Their house was under threat of burning down. Thankfully, their house did not burn down. And so several other friends said, come to our house, we're away for Christmas or holidays. Here's the passcode to get in the gate or what the garage or whatever. And they said, no, we're going to go to Lakey's house. And he's invited us. And so this dear couple, good friends of mine, came over to the house and they decided to stay a night. And then the next morning, their house had not burned down, but they were still smoky smells and stuff. I think they stayed a couple, and they said, have we overstayed our welcome? I said, no, you haven't at all. And they said, good, we're staying one more night because we don't have any heat in our home. The power was off still. So they had to cut off all the gas, turned off all the gas, so they didn't have explosions. And they're waiting for the heat to get back on and get the houses warmed up. And it was really cold, if you remember the Marshall Fire. And I remember going, this is not bad. But they were self-sufficient. They had their guest room. They were self-contained. They knew where the coffee pot was at. They enjoyed fine cigars like I do, so they knew where my cigar room was in the house with the ventilation and all that stuff. So it wasn't bad, but I think they were here 2 or 3 nights. But, that was an extreme circumstance. Now, if they would have wanted to move in, if their house would have burned down, I would say, you should really talk to that insurance company about a hotel room. I think that would be a very good thing. Now, I could change my mind if instead of a hotel room, they were paying me to stay here. That would be a whole different animal. But all right, how long is it before someone has overstayed their welcome in the holiday season? And do you ever just kind of set that example right up front? Okay, you're here for 5 days? Good. 5 days, that's fantastic. I love it. You enjoy your 5 days here. And I'll do the countdown on the front door with a little sticky note. You have 3 to 4 nights, says Jim. 3 or 4 nights. After that, Jim's going to kick your butt out of his house. You get out of here. Ray's over on the YouTube says for Sunday, it depends on how often they mention the person they voted for or whether they used the race card. I don't know if I have anybody that would stay here. I'm not sure that we're not talking politics. And, if they're crazy liberal, I'm going to tell them to see if the government will help them. I know I wouldn't do that. Arloa says a lot depends on how far away they have come. If they've come a long distance, I want them to stay long enough to be worth their trip. Okay, that's fair enough. You're looking out for other people, Arloa, but I know this is about you. How long? Forget about it being worth their trip. How long does it take for them to be annoying to you? And I think it really depends on the person out there. As kind of going back to my grandparents growing up, that's where we would go. Usually after Christmas, after the Christmas morning or something, we'd haul off. But we would say 3 nights, maybe max. 2 or 3 nights, that was kind of the max, and everybody would kind of go home after that. And I don't know that I'm sure Grandma and Grandpa would have loved for us to stay longer. But I also think I remember my grandma was kind of a neat freak, and having that many grandkids running around, it really stressed her out. The kids are in the kitchen. I've already cleaned the kitchen, kids. So it made her nervous. So we had to get out of there before Grandma went totally bat crap crazy. So, all right, good to have everybody on the show. Happy 250th anniversary to their birthday to the U.S. Marine Corps. God bless you all for have served in the Marines. And again, never say former Marine. They're just Marines that are no longer there. Happy birthday, November the 10th, 1775. You'll see on the screen, the U.S. Marine Corps turns 250 years of age today. Even before the birthday of our nation, 250th birthday, the U.S. Marine Corps was already formed. Here's an interesting stat I find, and some of you may be able to comment on this. I know many of you have served your country. Producer Chad served in the Air Force. And it's funny, I was at a Veterans Day, what they call a HERF, a cigar smoking event yesterday for veterans to honor veterans. And I attended that yesterday to honor the veterans. And as I attended that cigar event, I heard veterans talking a lot of smack. I mean, I remember my son and his friends growing up in the house here, and they'd be talking trash to each other and smack talking each other. Well, I heard the Marines and the Air Force and the Army and the Navy and the Coast Guard and the Space Force. They were all they all talk smack to each other. And so even today, when many Marines are taking it very seriously that it's the 250th birthday of the U.S. Marine Corps, producer Chad, who served his country in the Air Force, said, I don't know when the Air Force birthday is. He says, I've got better things to put in my brain. If I wanted to know, I'd write it down like Einstein wrote phone numbers down. He says, but I guess, and this is the smack talking you got yesterday, and they talk smack. Producer Chad, I guess it's all the crayons those guys ate in the Marine Corps. They cause that to be something that gets stuck in their head that this is the birthday. Does anybody know any other branch of military when the birthday is? Air Force, Army, Navy, Space Force. I don't know. I was talking to somebody yesterday who's done some government contracting and helping with some Space Force things, and he goes, "Those guys are weird." If you're in the Space Force, I'd love to hear from you, but I've heard you're weird. So I don't know if that's true. That's just who he was talking about. Anyway, if you know the birthday of the other branches of service, we'd love to celebrate those accordingly. But we have to celebrate 250 years of the U.S. Marines because the U.S. Marines are reminding us that it's a birthday for them. And as producer Chad said, it could be a lot about the crayons they ate. Duly noted. All right. Happy birthday to that. Trump has a pardon pen. Have you heard this headline yet? You probably have not. On the Daily Update, I'm going to give it to you. Donald Trump has signed a pardon, not an auto pen, but he's actually signed it himself, we're told. Several top associates, including 77 alternate electors and top associates from the 2020 election controversy, including Rudy Giuliani has received a pardon. John Eastman, Christina Bobb, Jeffrey Clark, Mark Meadows. Let me give you the whole story. President Trump on Sunday night pardoned the 77 alternative electors from the 2020 election who were ruthlessly and unjustly persecuted by the Joe Biden regime after the stolen 2020 election. This is right from the news. The list includes President Trump's former attorneys, Rudy Giuliani, Christina Bobb, and John Eastman. The list also includes Trump trusted advisors, Mark Meadows, Boris Epstein, and a dozen of alternative electors that came from Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, Nevada, and Wisconsin. The language of the pardon is largely symbolic. None of those identified were charged with federal crimes, but the document posted is also undated, so it's unclear when Trump actually signed it. Breaking, says the headline, wrote somebody on X, Donald Trump, J. Trump has pardoned the 2020 alternative electors. He continued, thank you. This is Ed Martin, by the way, of the Department of Justice. Thank you, President Donald Trump, for allowing me as a U.S. pardon attorney to work with the White House, along with Attorney General Pam Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche and Solicitor General John Sauer to achieve your intent. Let the healing begin in our country. And that came from the Department of Justice there. And there's a whole long list of them, 70 or something names that many of them did not face federal charges, but they have been symbolically pardoned by the president after Joe Biden and his Justice Department decided to prosecute and persecute anybody who might have believed that Donald Trump got ripped off in that election in 2020. And I think the more and more that we learn after that election from the Russia collusion scandal and all the lies we were told, we're just going to continue to learn there were more and more lies told from 2016 through the present day. So we'll find out. The truth will set us free, and I think the truth will come out and has started to come out on this election in 2020, and the same way the truth has started to come out and came out long ago on the Russia collusion scandal and all the things that the Democrats did to try to keep Donald Trump out of the White House. Because why? Remember, we called it Russian collusion scandal. Trump derangement syndrome. Sorry, I'm reading the Russian collusion scandal on my notes. It's the Trump derangement syndrome is cause these people to go crazy. Anybody bank with J.P. Morgan or Chase? Old Jamie Dimon out there. Well, speaking of targeting Donald Trump and the Trump derangement syndrome, a shocking new revelation shows that special counsel Jack Smith secretly subpoenaed J.P. Morgan Chase for the private banking records of Trump Media and Technology Group, despite the company not existing at the time of January the 6th. So the company did not exist on January the 6th, but in order to investigate January the 6th, special counsel Jack Smith subpoenaed J.P. Morgan Chase for banking records related to a company that wasn't even in existence. The move was uncovered by the Trump Media CEO, Devin Nunes, and it represents yet another case of the Joe Biden, demented poopy pants Joe Biden and his Justice Department under the very scandalous and corrupt Merrick Garland, extending its political reach far beyond reason or legality. Trump Media became a public company in 2024, years after the events that Smith's investigation supposedly were focusing on. And yet Jack Smith's Arctic Frost operation went after Truth Social's bank records as though it were somehow connected to the Capitol protest. So you have the Capitol January the 6th riots or the protests that happened there. Trump social media did not, Truth Social, that did not even exist. And yet Arctic Frost director Jack Smith got a subpoena to go after the records of a company that had not even opened until gone public until 2024. That raises the question, what possible justification could exist for subpoenaing a company that did not exist at the time of the alleged crime? Answer that question. Why would Jack Smith, approved by Merrick Garland and Joe Biden, why would Jack Smith subpoena the records of a company that did not exist at the time of the alleged crime? There is no reason for this, unless the move was political. Devin Nunes explained in an interview with Fox News and Maria Bartiromo, the subpoena was not only unjustified, but it was also secret. Trump media was never notified. Even more concerning, J.P. Morgan Chase, one of the largest banks in the world, complied without question. This is a company headquartered in Florida. Such cooperation was with an unfounded federal demand may have violated both state and federal laws, yet the bank even went further. J.P. Morgan Chase, at the height of the Trump media public offering in 2024, just as Truth Social was preparing to go public and raise $250 million, J.P. Morgan abruptly, did you know this? They debanked the company. That decision, coming amid active cooperation with the Biden Justice Department, effectively sabotaged a major free speech enterprise, and it was a clear act of corporate compliance with intimidation. J.P. Morgan later told Fox News that it does not close accounts for political reasons, but Devin Nunes' account says otherwise. The timing of the debanking, the secret subpoena, and the coordination of the Justice Department point to something, a larger pattern, a pattern of financial institutions doing dirty work for partisan prosecutors. So if you're a banker, you bank at JP Morgan or Chase, you might want to recognize that they have some splaining to do when it comes to debanking and prosecuting, persecuting, and subpoenaing unnecessary bank records of the Trump administration. And they went right along with the tyrants in the Merrick Garland Justice Department, and the Biden administration went right along with it. All right, what else do we have? We have the question of the day: how long does it become when a guest is staying too long at your house? 6 days. On a fun story, you probably heard about people soaking in a tub by candlelight. Maybe you like to do that. Maybe you like to get your chocolate and your wine and your bubble bath and your salt fizzy things that go in there. That's what producer Chad does every Saturday. Believe me, it's weird, especially when he comes to my house to do it. It's very awkward. But at least maybe you watch a movie. You know, I've known ladies that say, I just get in the bathtub, I'm crying for no reason. You know, the women thing. And maybe the guys, you might want the fizzy bath or the bath salts or something like that as well. Well, people are now taking that trend of sitting in a tub by candlelight a step further. There's a wellness trend. And I'm probably not going to participate in this, but thank you. The wellness trend is called dark showering. It's real simple. It's a normal shower, but you flip the lights off so you can't see anything. Two main things come to mind when I hear this. Why? Various doctor types say that the sensory change can improve your sleep. If you shower at night before bed, bright lights tell your brain that the body should wake up, raising cortisol and lowering melatonin. But cutting the lights can have the opposite effect. Low light or no light signals safety. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system and begins the natural body descent into rest and to a repair mode. Of course, you can do this without the shower part, but some people say that the shower thing is just a fantastic thing. Turn off the lights. I've never, this is stupid. This is the dumbest thing I've had to read in a while. If you want to hop on the trend of dark showering, you should probably start by showering under low light so you can still see. And then if it's too dark, you might not get completely clean, or you might forget an area to scrub because you didn't see it. Or you could just create a mess. So some people say maybe just a dim light shower, but those that are real dedicated to it have decided that they're going to dim and the shower, not just dim light, but total blackout conditions. I don't understand that. There's also the reason that they say maybe dim lights is a safety warning so that you don't slip down and break your neck. And your cause of death is in your obituary is died of a wellness trend. I don't recommend this at home. If you want to dim the lights when you shower, that's fine. But blackout or dark showering might be dangerous to all of you. It's not really all that big of a news, but it's making trends on the social media that people are trying the dark showering or the blind showering, and they say it's very, very relaxing. It's all very relaxing until you fall down and break a bone in your body, and then that's not good at all. So careful out there, kids. If you're going to shower, just shower at your own lighting comfort level, and please do not send photos of you in the shower. That's all I can say. I was reminding one time. Oh, by the way, people are signing off. I asked, does anybody else remember their branch of service and its birthday? Bob says on Facebook, October the 19th, 1775. That would be for the Navy. So the Navy sitting here going, we're the big dogs here. Army is June the 14th, 1775. So Army and Navy beat the Marines to it. That would go back with producer Chad feeling that maybe they were eating crayons, and that's why they didn't get birthed until November. That's producer Chad said that. Air Force's birthday is September the 18th, 1947. I have a family of airmen veterans, so congratulations, Ray. Appreciate the information. So now I want to know how many of you knew that off the top of your head or how many of you had to Google that. But producer Chad did not know that September 18th, 1947 is the day that his beloved Air Force came into existence. And now you know, producer Chad, and you did not celebrate in September, so you should mark your calendar for next September, and you should celebrate accordingly. You're welcome for that information. Thank you. All right. Ray says, if you're showering in the dark and slip and fall, it's going to be awkward for the emergency crew saving your butt. Well, if you slip and fall and you shower in the dark, the question then becomes, who's going to, if you're home alone, how do you get to your phone? If you're not showering with your phone, you better keep a phone handy if you're showering in the dark. That way, when you fall and you are hurt and you broke your hip or something, you reach up and grab the phone. Keep the phone within reachability and make sure you can find it even in the dark. Yeah, I mentioned one time that people were listening to me on the radio, and people would say, I'll listen to you every morning when I get up. Every morning when I get up. They're talking, you're just part of my morning routine. That's what happens when you're 6 to 10 in the morning, as I was for years in the Mountain Time Zone, morning drive radio. And somebody mentioned it, and they made it kind of creepy. And I said, listen, what you're basically explaining to me is you're standing there butt naked, getting yourself dressed every morning, listening to me, and that's more information than I needed. And then I had a series of people that began sending photos, not of them in the shower, thank God, but foggy mirrors or foggy shower doors or stuff, and you could see a phone or a speaker sitting there, and that's how they were listening to me on an app or maybe a transistor radio. So I don't know. That was weird. People sending photos of the interior of their bathroom to show the fog and the steam and all the stuff fogged up. And there's a speaker booming out Jimmy Lakey. People sent these to me by the dozens, and I just found that kind of to be weird. So I'm very careful about talking about people showering in the dark. Stacy says, Coast Guard for my husband is 1790. 1790, the Coast Guard. My good friend Bill's in the Coast Guard. All the other guys give him hassle. You're the Coast Guard. I like the Coast Guard. That'd be what I'd probably do. Is it easier to do? I don't think so. I think they got boot camp, right? Yeah, I remember I had he was an older guy. Went to high school, or he was much older than me. I went to church. I think I was like in elementary school or middle school, and he was a high school graduate. So I was a kid, and I remember hearing the tales of him going through Marine boot camp. And they talked about having to climb this high wall and descend the other side. And I said, at that point, I'm AWOL. At that point, I'm out of here. At that point, I'm not participating in said conversation. Just not going to do it. Yeah, I don't like the height thing. But yeah, you guys, all of you, God bless you all for the boot camp. You guys went through a heck of a lot to serve your country. We appreciate it. And tomorrow is officially Veterans Day, but we recognize all the veterans as much as we can every day. And we'll have a special couple of guests on this program tomorrow to celebrate Veterans Day as well. All right, good to have you out there. Thank a veteran out there. You see it pop up on the screen. Thank a veteran. Thank them for their service. Always drives me crazy. I know it's kind of a little bit of pickiness on my part, but I get Memorial Day is when we honor and we reflect and we commemorate those who passed. Veterans Day, they thank the veterans. Now, it's never inappropriate on Memorial Day to say thank you for your service, but that's not the intent of Memorial Day. And I hope that maybe through years of pounding the topic that we understand the difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day, because one's for the living and one's for the dead. Okay, so tomorrow's for the living, and you can start that celebration today. All right, we got the Coast Guard. That's curious. Stacey, your husband is in the Coast Guard. Producer Chad served in the Air Force. Everybody in the chat room, whether you're on the Rumble or the YouTube, if you served your country, would you put up there maybe what branch of service you were in? And everybody can see who all served in our audience out there. So if you served in the Air Force, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, the Coast Guard, anybody in the Space Force out there, sound off in the chat room, post up on the Facebook, the Rumble, the YouTube, the X. Let us know where it is and how you served your country. And we would love to let everybody know that you served your country. We thank all of you for doing that. I did this cigar event I was at yesterday with a bunch of veterans. I recognized I had to take a photo of, they said, get the jar heads together. We're going to send it to some guy they have at Camp Pendleton. And so they all the jar heads stood there and they were half cocked. I tell you, they were drinking. I think they were drinking for fun. I don't think it was PTSD. I think they were just drunks. And I snapped a photo of the jar heads, right? And they sent it off to some drill sergeant or friend they knew at Camp Pendleton or something like that. And I started to recognize, I said, wow, these guys look really old. And then I went, oh, crap, they're around my age, maybe a little older, maybe a little younger. And all of these guys served in that. A lot of them were touched by that 20-year war that the Bush administration got us involved in. Nobody could get us out of until, Joe Biden unceremoniously embarrassed us getting out of those things. But it was Donald Trump who began talking about ending those unnecessary wars. And a lot of those jarheads, if you will, that stood there posing for a photo yesterday were touched by a war. And sad to say, they fought on behalf of these politicians who didn't really have a freaking clue what they were doing. Jim, thank you for your service, my friend, a veteran in the Army of 21 years. Jim, if you see Jim in the chat rooms, no more being mean to Jim, at least for the next 24 to 48 hours. Celebrate his serving of the country for 21 years. Jeff was in the U.S. Air Force, worked with and in Space Command before they got their own branch. So Jeff is a space cadet. We see by some of his posts, he's a little spacey in the head. Jeff, thank you for your service out there. Thank you for your service. We do appreciate that indeed. All right, waiting on a guest to arrive here in just a moment. Hopefully he'll show up soon. Mr. John Lake should be with us here in just a second. Let me once again play this audio if you're just tuning in. This is audio of Barack Hussein Obama with the breaking news that the federal government possibly is going to reopen in the next couple of days. U.S. senators have compromised, as Democrats, a couple of Democrats have compromised and are going to help the Republicans pass a continuing resolution. There's a couple of little nuggets in there. They're going to get promised that there will be a vote on these Obamacare supplements or extensions. That's going to happen in December. That's not going to be attached to this bill. It's going to fund the government through the end of January. It's supposed to go through November, but it's going to get through the holiday season so that they can put out a real bill and a real budget. And it's fascinating that they've locked up the government all this time, and a lot of the radicals in the Democrat Party are still squawking that they can't believe these turncoats out there. But let me play once again. Then we're going to a great guest here of the morning. I want to play once again this audio, and this is President Barack Obama many years ago talking about government shutdown. And amazing, this is what he told Republicans about government shutdown. I wonder why Barack Obama didn't pick up the phone and tell Democrats the same thing in the last 4 weeks or so. If this was truly the heartfelt notion of Barack Obama on how you operate a government shutdown or why you do or do not shut down the government, where was Barack Obama the last 4+ weeks in lecturing his party about the government shutdown? This is Barry Hussein Obama. Go.
Down the government just because you don't like a law that was passed and found constitutional. No Congress before this one has ever in history been irresponsible enough to threaten default, to threaten an economic shutdown, to suggest America not pay its bills just to try to blackmail a president into giving them some concessions. We're not going to submit to this kind of total irresponsibility. Congress needs to pay our bills on time. Congress needs to pass a budget on time. Congress needs to put an end to governing from crisis to crisis. If Republicans do not like the law, they can go through the regular channels and processes to try to change it. That's why we have elections. You do not threaten the full faith and credit of the United States of America.
There you have it. That's Barack Obama. And again, if Barack Obama really believed that, he should have been lecturing Chuck Schumer and the Democrats. But the fact is, Barack Obama doesn't have any influence over the Democrats. And there he is out there saying one thing, but in action, the Democrats do another thing. All right, glad to have you here on the program. Bob chimed in right there. We were asking if you served in the military. Bob served for the U.S. Navy 26 years. Any jarheads out there? So are they drunk already, celebrating the birthday of the Marine Corps today? I got a friend who said, "Jimmy, here's where we're meeting tomorrow about 11:30. You're going to come?" And I said, "I've got work. I got things I got to get done." And he says, "I'm getting a ride, and we're going to party it up for the Marine Corps." And I said, "Yeah, drunk jarheads. That's probably a bar fight waiting to happen. I think I'm not going to go there." Anyway, happy birthday to the Marine Corps. And Bob, thank you for your service in the U.S. Navy for 26 years as we head into Veterans Day. All right, if we may, I want to switch gears. I want to welcome back into the program Mr. John Lake. He's an author of a book. We've talked about vaccines, mythology, ideology, and reality. He's worked with Dr. Peter McCullough and was the primary author of their best-selling book, called The Courage to Face the COVID-19. John Lake is in the studio green room, and we want to put him on the screen here. John, welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
Thank you. I'm delighted to see you, Jimmy.
Great to have you back. I saw this story pop up. As a matter of fact, I have the NPR version of it here in front of me. But I think after the COVID vaccine, people are just kind of much more aware, or maybe it's just me. Anytime I see vaccine in a headline or pharmaceuticals, I'm paying a lot of attention to it. But maybe part of the Robert F. Kennedy MAHA movement, there's a story that the Trump administration is saying, hey, why do we have aluminum in vaccines? And we should at least look at that, if not remove them. And the reaction isn't, oh, yeah, that's a great idea. The reaction seems to be, we can't do that.
Well, Jimmy, I wonder, can I take just 1 minute to go a little technical on
this? Please do.
So vaccines, your audience may recall that the idea is you take a weakened version, an attenuated, from the Latin to make thin or to weaken, an attenuated version of an infectious disease pathogen. You inject it into the deltoid muscle, and it's weakened so that it doesn't cause you to be sick, but it enables, in theory, the immune system to recognize it and to build antibodies to it. That's the theory. In practice, because it's weakened, the problem is that the immune system may just ignore it. It's not exciting an immune response. So what these guys discovered back in the 30s was that you could take aluminum salts and you could inject aluminum salts with the attenuated pathogen, and the aluminum salts will awaken the immune system, excite the immune system, so that it will recognize the weakened form of the pathogen. That's the idea. Okay. In terms of the toxicity of aluminum, there wasn't too much worry about that. The perception seemed to be, we don't have to worry about aluminum toxicity, even though it's known to be toxic. The idea is that the dose is small enough to where it's not a problem. However, that has not stopped people from over the years, over the decades, growing increasingly concerned. This aluminum toxicity could be a problem, particularly for very small children whose central nervous system is still developing. So there's been a long discussion about aluminum. It's called an aluminum adjuvant. It accompanies the vaccine in order to excite the immune system. The people who are really gung-ho on childhood vaccines have taken the position that the aluminum adjuvant is an absolutely critical component of the vaccine to make it work. But the other side of it is, well, yeah, but what if it's toxic to the brains and central nervous system in general of small developing kids? So the debate's been going on for a long time. I mean, I would say 40 years. It's just with Robert Kennedy becoming HHS secretary, we've arrived at this moment of let's go ahead and remove it as an unnecessary risk factor. The other side is saying, well, if you remove the aluminum adjuvant, the vaccine is going to lose its immunogenicity. So that's where we are. And I have my own opinion about this, but that's just to outline the discussion.
Well, I want to get to your opinion and see what you think of this. But I also want to, it seems like if this is where they began years ago, aluminum salts, that if they need that extra boost to kind of make the immune system pay attention, the phrase aluminum tells me it's metals, and I'm like, why are we putting that in our body? Are there no other ways that they could activate the immune system to wake up? I mean, obviously years ago, maybe aluminum salts were the only way, but it seems like there might be other ways to do that now.
Well, I mean, there are different chemicals that have been used as adjuvants, and I think what Maha is proposing is we're just going to have to look at some other compounds that could have a similar adjuvant effect that aren't a known metal that causes neural inflammation. So yes, there are other adjuvants that could be examined. One of them that's kind of interesting. It derives from sharks. I've not looked at this adjuvant in a while, but if my memory serves, I think it's called squalene, from the Latin squalus, shark. That's kind of an interesting story unto itself. It requires harvesting a lot of sharks, which are an important part of the marine ecosystem. But yes, to answer your question, there are other adjuvants. I happen to believe, the concern is this explosive, highly alarming increase of the prevalence of autism in American children. So the question is, what is causing this? The timeline is so obvious and so kind of hit you on the head with the frying pan. I mean, this spike of autism has completely correlated in lockstep with this proliferation of shots on the childhood schedule. I happen to think it's going to be very difficult to nail down a particular component of the childhood vaccine schedule because the child is just receiving so many shots now. A baby goes in, he might get 9 shots. That's multiple infectious disease pathogens, plus adjuvants, plus chemical preservatives. And for a percentage of children to receive all of these pathogens and chemicals all at once, it seems to be just too much for at least some percentage of children. They just have an adverse reaction to this. So in my opinion, just removing the aluminum adjuvant, I mean, it's kind of nibbling away at the margins. What the whole schedule needs to be reevaluated. And remember, for a lot of these vaccines, these are old technologies. I mean, the vaccine manufacturers received liability protection in '86, and that effectively undermined any real incentive to optimize a lot of these technologies. So aluminum salts, I mean, they've been using them as adjuvants since the 1930s. There aren't that many products where we just say, well, it worked in the 30s. Let's just roll with it. I mean, things are evaluated and optimized, as our scientific, material science, chemical science advances.
And that's a fantastic point, because it's true. We don't treat cancer the way now we did 20, 30, 40 years ago. Years ago, they used leeches. I mean, you can look at the advancement of modern medicine, but vaccine technology, if you will, a lot of it's just stuck back in the 1930s, and nobody has rethought anything. And when they did, they come up with the the mRNA technology, and the creators of that said that should have never been used as a vaccine. So it seems as if vaccine science is either outdated or just not real. There's a problem here in this vaccine community.
Well, just think of it this way. So humans are terrified of infectious diseases. And if you look at human history, for good measure, I mean, if you go back to the 18th and 19th centuries, childhood, even early 20th, childhood mortality in the West was very high. But, there are two observations I would ask your audience to contemplate. The first is that the conditions of life in our cities today, there's just no comparison to our living standards today than the standards that, or lack thereof, that prevailed in the 18th and 19th centuries. I mean, people are often shocked when I tell them that the great city of London, the largest, most advanced city on earth in the 19th century, did not have a completed proper sewage system until 1885. So, I mean, the work began on the sewer, I believe, in 1858. But, for centuries, the people of London at any given moment are just drinking sewage contaminated groundwater. So, we didn't have proper housing. We didn't have proper ventilation or heating. People, working poor, the urban working poor in the 19th and even in the early 20th centuries, they huddled together in tenement buildings, drinking sewage water, malnourished, not getting enough food, freezing cold in the winter, sharing the same, lavatory on an entire floor of a tenement building with, 100 other families. I mean, conditions were just infernal, 100 years ago. And so it's just not comparable. The infectious disease ecology of a modern American city is not comparable to what it was in the past. So we live in an era in which we can review these vaccine technologies and do a proper risk-benefit analysis. And it's absolutely critical. It's imperative to do this in our current era of autism. I mean, the CDC is now saying 1 in 31 American kids, are estimated to have autism. Well, that's what, 3% of the population? The extreme, the profound side of the spectrum, what we call profound autism, that's 27% of these kids by CDC estimates. Their parents are going to have to look after them for the rest of their lives. They're nonverbal. They can't go to the bathroom by themselves. A lot of these children have profound neurological problems where they'll bang their head, they'll scream, they don't sleep at night. And for our medical profession, just to say, something, we don't know what's causing this, it seems rather lamentable, sorry. Well, that's not going to work. I mean, we're going to have to get to the bottom of this. And vaccines seem to be the highest risk factor by far.
You've written a book. People should get it. It's called Vaccines, Mythology, Ideology, and the Reality. And you worked with Peter McCullough. You were the primary author of the best-selling book, The Courage to Face COVID-19. I think it's important in this day and age, as we have Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for the first time actually sounding the alarm and raising some questions inside the government. I think that he's playing a very important role, and I hope that he can get as much done as he can in the next several years as he is in the office that he's at. But talk about this book, Vaccines, Mythology, Ideology, and Reality. A lot of folks grew up saying, well, I got a couple of shots when I was a kid. It didn't hurt me. And there's a difference between now and then. Why is this book so important to us as we're in an era where questioning the science and relooking at everything is so important? Why is the book so important?
Well, the book is a critical history and evaluation of the entire vaccine enterprise going back to 1721. There was a smallpox outbreak in Boston, Massachusetts. We had an early inoculation procedure, which we describe in the book. And we look at the whole 300-year history of vaccines going all the way up to the rollout of the messenger RNA COVID-19 vaccines in early 21. So it's exactly 300-year history. And it's an exposition, it's a critical evaluation of the entire enterprise. And I think if people read the book, it's written in a kind of adventure story style. We develop the characters. We show how mankind's thinking has evolved. I think an important observation that we make in the book is that at the same time that vaccines are developing, as I mentioned earlier, you have developments in all of these other features of civilization. By the time you get to 1948, which was the year in which the childhood vaccine schedule was introduced, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommended for all American children a diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis shot. By the time you get to 48, all you have to do is look at U.S. vital statistics published by the Office of U.S. Vital Statistics. And what you see is that infectious disease mortality, annual deaths from most infectious diseases, had already plummeted more than 90% before the vaccine schedule was introduced. So, we are in a position now, there's a concern about autism, there's a concern about other neurodevelopmental problems, chronic diseases, allergies, attention deficit disorder. We've seen an explosion of these chronic diseases amongst America's young people. And I have a news flash for the American people. If our young people, if our children and young people are all sick and mentally impaired, it does not bode well for the history of American civilization.
Yeah.
So, we need to look at what's making American children sick. And since 1986, when vaccine manufacturers received liability immunity for their products, we've seen a proliferation of shots on the childhood schedule. And the logic is clear. It's like, oh, thanks for the liability protection for the existing shots. Let's go ahead and add another 50 to the schedule because great work if you can get it, right?
Yeah.
We just come up with these these new products. We insist that all American children need to get them. Pretty big market. The U.S. government buys the shots from us. We don't even have to market it. And then the U.S. government assumes liability on behalf of us if children are injured or killed. So Can you imagine a better business model? I mean, it's perfect. Can you imagine if you told the U.S. government, could you subsidize my podcast? I'm going to say all kinds of just deranged, crazy stuff. If anybody sues me, U.S. government attorneys.
I like this.
I mean, it's just completely insane.
Yeah, I like the business model you're going for.
It's great. I know. I wish I envy those vaccine guys. Smart guys.
John Lakey is our guest. The name of the book is called Vaccines, Mythology, Ideology, and Reality. A very important topic. And as you guys have listened to this show long enough, know that I've had my eyes wide open to this as my son, when I adopted him. I didn't know there were options. I didn't know. I got to a U.S. embassy as I adopted him in Rwanda. They started sticking needles in him. He had a reaction that night. Freaked the hell out of me. I started doing my research and said, whoa, 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 whoa. And yet I've been a voice crying in the wilderness on this whole thing that you might want to pay very close attention. John Lake, if so, folks, first of all, want to get the book, of course, it's wherever fine books are sold. If it ain't a fine book, it's not a fine bookstore, it's not going to sell this book. If folks want to follow you online, I see the website there. Is that the best place to find you?
Yeah, you can find information about me and my other books. I come out of true crime. I'm also a true crime author. So if you're a true crime fan, you'll like my other stuff. And then Dr. Peter McCullough and I write a daily newsletter called The Focal Points. That's plural, thefocalpoints.com, in which we write about all kinds of stuff.
John Lake, I appreciate your time, sir. Appreciate your expertise, and I look forward to getting a copy of this book. I think I ordered it, and I don't know where it's at, so I'll check with Amazon. John, thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on, and have a great rest of the week, sir. My friends, read up on this topic. That's all I can ask you. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on a podcast, but read up on this topic, and it's really interesting. This whole schedule of the vaccine that has increased, and the exponential increase. And I've told the story about the chicken pox vaccine. Parents are like, kids will get chicken pox. Then it got mandated, and now you have the highest levels of childhood shingles going on. I mean, it's just this never-ending circle, and it all really, I think he's right, started back in 1986 when immunity, and you got technology been used since 1930, and you would not accept cancer treatment the same as it was in 1930. You want the most cutting edge, and make sure that there's a lot of safeguards in there. You wanted people to rethink it, but for some reason in this world, they never have rethought any of that technology and necessity of it, because it's a money printing machine for some of these big companies. Pay attention, if you would, pay attention. And again, let me tell you the name of the book. John Leake is the author. You can go to his website. It's author John Leake, but Vaccines, Mythology, Ideology, and Reality. And of course, you might remember he was the primary author of the co-written book by Dr. Peter McCullough, The Courage to Face COVID-19. So anything by John Leake. And again, he's got some crime novels out as well. And all of you on YouTube, if we're not there tomorrow, it's probably because of the interview we just did. Just saying, they don't like it when we talk about this topic. All right, ladies and gentlemen, producer Chad is on a beach. He got disconnected for a second. We'll see if we have any memes remaining, because he disappeared and the memes disappeared, but we now know. So he's going to cue those up. Want to remind you about Sherry, homeswithsherry.com before I do the memes. Homeswithsherry.com. Listen, I know it's November. If you want to talk about real estate and just kind of the differing windows of opportunity for real estate and different seasonality of it, I'm not talking winter, summer, fall, spring. I'm talking about November, December, what happens to the market if you're buying and selling, how it can shift from a buyer-seller's market just depending on the calendar time of the year. We talked about that on Friday's show. Go back and listen to the Friday edition of this program, and you're going to hear my great interview with Sherry Creed. The bottom line is there's a lot of nuance and strategery that has to happen when you sell a home. And Sherry wants to start with your end game. What do you hope to accomplish, and kind of work back into that? And listen, maybe you're not in a huge hurry, and you can start the conversation with her, and you say, I'm not really ready till the kids are out of school anyway. Well, fine. Have that conversation now, and she can help you start getting things in order. Maybe decluttering it, maybe painting it, maybe not much. She may say, don't do that. That's not going to get return on investment. She can get you ready and help you kind of figure out what you need to do to be getting ready to put that house on the market. Listen, she knows and realizes and wants to help you realize that real estate is one of those things that can create generational wealth if you do it the right way. Homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. Have a conversation. Again, you may be in a buyer's market, but if you wait too long, you'll be in a seller's market. You may be in a seller's market, you wait too long, things happen, it becomes a buyer's market. It's a real game of supply and demand. And neighborhood to neighborhood, city to city, Sherry can help you figure out what the supply is, what the demand is, and that way you can approach it as with that in mind, that, hey, well, I want to, if I'm the buyer, I want a buyer's market. So you want to get in the market before it becomes a seller's market. And if you're a seller, I'm going to wait for this. You get the idea. There's nuance on the calendar, and Sherry knows the trends. She knows how it's going to work out. And again, it's all about getting you top dollar, getting you the best deal, and having you recognize, and she recognizes that your real estate transaction can create generational wealth. Homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. Be sure to talk to her. Tell her you heard about her on the Lakey Show. HomesWithSherry.com if you're in Colorado. I-25 corridor, Denver to Fort Collins, Broomfield to Boulder, Parker, Aurora, Highlands Ranch, Lakewood, Longmont. You get the idea. That I-25 corridor, HomesWithSherry.com. Hello, Windsor. HomesWithSherry.com. Be sure to mention my name. And if she also has a referral service, if you're outside of her area, she'll find someone just as qualified as she is to help you. HomesWithSherry.com. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the meme roulette section of the show where we go far and wide. We steal memes. And producer Chad says we're good to go on the memes as he's sitting on a beach drinking cerveza early in the morning. Let's do it. Round around the globe we go where we steal the memes from. No one knows. Boom. There that comes. I got to put on the glasses now. I can't see it. I didn't have influencers growing up. I had uncles who gave bad advice for free. Yeah, that's how all of us were. We had the uncles giving bad advice. Round around the globe we go where we steal the memes from. No one knows. Here comes another one. Boom. Mom Dami, he's dethroned Gavin Newsom as U-Haul's top salesman. Congratulations to you, Mom Dami the commie. Right, I got the clear pair now. See, it's transparent. Round around the globe we go where we steal the memes from. No one knows. Ready to go. Here it comes from the beach, rolling up there. This is Dick. That's his name. He moved out of a blue state to escape Democrat high taxes, corruption, and crime. Dick moved to a red state, but still votes for Democrats who will raise taxes and implement failed policies. Don't be one. Don't be one. If you move from California to escape the policies of high taxes, corruption, and crime, don't vote the same way in the new state, you jackwagon. Do you hear me? I'm telling you, don't do it. Don't be a Richard. Round around the globe we go where we steal the memes from. No one knows. Europeans, I'm holidaying. Your emails will be forwarded nowhere to be read by no one. Good day. Americans, they're on the beach with a computer and a phone. Isn't that true? Producer Chad's working on this show on his holiday, but everybody else is sobering up in bed and he's getting drunk early in the morning. It's what happened. Round around the globe we go where we steal the memes from no one knows. I have PTSD, pretty tired of stupid Democrats. Oh, hallelujah for that one. PTSD. Yeah, that's true right there. Round around the globe we go where we steal the memes from no one knows. Oh, this one came in from a listener named Linda. Linda, if you're offended by this, if anybody is, please blame Linda. And I just forwarded it to producer Chad, and I said, I don't know if this is appropriate, but evidently Linda and producer Chad think that this is appropriate. I'm going to let you kind of read some of it. I forgot to zip my pants today, so a lady politely said, sir, your garage is open. I zipped them up and asked, did you see my monster truck parked inside? And the lady said, no, just a small Toyota with 2 flat tires. Is that Mom Donnie's photo right there? Is that Mom Donnie? It looks like the commie Mom Donnie, doesn't it? It does. Again, if you're offended by that, don't blame me. That is producer Chad and listener viewer Linda. Don't blame me. I have nothing to do with that. Here we go. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Here's the gong. China's the last place we check, and when we hit the gong, that means China has said, we're out of memes down here for you to steal. Intellectual property, they steal intellectual property in China, and when they say we're out of intellectual property to steal, we stop stealing it. Thus the stolen meme section of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a pleasure to be here on the program today. Producer Chad is on a beach, and the pre-show, I could not even hear him. Really, he was talking a lot, but I don't really know what he was saying, but I think he was saying he really thinks this is a fantastic program and he's happy to be part of it. All right, everybody, Crazy Bill checked back in. He's one of my old radio listeners, Crazy Bill. Linda says, thanks. Linda says, Ray says, Linda, thanks. Coffee hurts shooting through the nose. That's about the monster truck with the flat tires. Linda says, I never claimed to be prim and proper. Linda, we never expected you to be prim and proper. We never did. Hey, now don't lump all Richards together. Rich says, hey, you changed that name to Richard. I had a grandpa named Richard, and he was known growing up. I didn't know as a word is known as Grandpa Dick. And as I got older, I realized well, he passed away before. And as I got older, I said, man, if he was still alive, would I still call him that? Probably might. I don't know. But at the time, it was no big deal. All right, let's wrap it up. Gotta go. Sorry, Richard, didn't mean to offend you. But don't be one. Don't be one of those people that go to. All right, here we go. I'm out of here. Producer Chad's got things to do. He's about 4 beers in, and he's got 4 more to go before 10 o'clock Mountain Time. I'll be back tomorrow morning. Good Lord, women, the creeks don't rise. Producer Chad on the beach in Mexico. Yeah, enjoy the tacos, Producer Chad. I'm Jimmy Lakey. God bless you. God bless America. Peace. I'm out of here.